much for that, Holly. We need to know that sort of information. Holly Samos, who will be known as Deep Pockets from here on.
She's right. She's absolutely right.
Thanks, Maurice. Yeah, you can wait till later as well. It is 5 Live Sports Extra. With 25 seconds to go until the session starts. Just to let you know that Fernando Alonso, you were talking about that engine blow-up at Monza. That was his first blow-up in terms of an engine failure since Japan in 2003. That's 52 races without a failure, and what a time for something to go wrong at Monza.
Well, exactly, and at a crucial moment too, and he'd worked his way up to third place after all that shenanigans over getting pushed back to 5th in the grid, from 5th to 10th in the grid. It really was it's the worst time for that to happen. But as you say, a very rare thing. They've had failures, during testing, but that's when you want them.
Yeah.
Because then that's when you're going to learn. And in fact, ironically, they'd had a failure during the Monza test, an engine failure, and this one, from what I understand, was the same. They'd figured out what it was. They tried their best to do damage limitation on it and couldn't quite get it right. And they were not totally surprised when it went. They had their fingers crossed. And believe it or not, when they got Giancarlo Fisichella's engine, took it apart because it had just done its 2-race cycle, just finished. They took it apart back at the factory at Viry-Châtillon, and it was just on the point of going. Apparently it wouldn't have lasted another lap. So that's how tight, how close they are running these engines. The level of taking it right up to the furthest level of stress you dare to before it breaks, and that's exactly what they're doing. That shows you how they're push all the way. You've got to, because Ferrari are doing the same.
And it may have been Fernando Alonso's first for 52 races. Giancarlo Fisichella, he had an engine blow up. Was it Bahrain in 2005? So they had an engine blow up a little more recently, 32 races ago. And they say it's a minor problem. De Renault, let's hope for the sake of the championship that it was minor and they've got it fixed and nothing happens. We want from now on a good clean battle. Just to let you know, out on the track, Frank Montagny, Sakon Yamamoto, Michael Ammermuller, who's the Friday driver for Red Bull, Sebastian Vettel for BMW, Alexander Prima, who is driving for Spiker MF1, he's their Friday driver this race, Takuma Sato and Niels Jani and Alexander Wirtz, and Anthony Davidson, who's just a little moment going off into the grass, but has carried on. Anthony Davidson, who had 2 engine blow-ups at Monza, and it certainly wasn't his day on the Friday. Honda not running the new spec engine this weekend, and they say it was a minor problem there as well that they've now solved.
Yes, Renault say that look, we know what's wrong, which of course is the good thing. The worst thing is if you come back, the car comes back and the engine's a box of bits, all mangled and so on. You don't know what's caused it, but they at least know what the problem is. They've sorted it. They've run it, the engine, as much as they can on the test bed and on the test track, and they're pretty confident that they have nailed that problem down.
So it's Sports Extra at the Shanghai International Circuit ahead of the China Grand Prix, and a lot of the cars returning back to the pits after just one installation lap. I can tell you that Frank Montagny and Sakon Yamamoto, the 2 Super Aguri drivers, are now back in the pits, as is Michael Ammermuller and Sebastian Vettel. Anthony Davidson still out on the track. Alexander Prima and Takuma Sato and Niels Jani have all come back into the pits again, and Alex Wirtz still out on the track. So I think Anthony Davidson could be the man that will set the first proper time of this session. 27.1 seconds through the first sector of what is a lovely track here, it has to be said. 16 turns, 9 right hand and 7 left hand, and 2 quite long straights, one of over 1 kilometre long, and then some very tricky, slow, twisty corners as well. Anthony Davidson on one of the straights at the moment, approaching the left-hander at turn 11, where he breaks down for about 170 miles an hour, and then third gear at this Shanghai circuit. And to let you know how that compares to last year's pole time, well, it's 7 seconds slower than Fernando Alonso's pole time of 2005, and it's 9 seconds slower than Michael Schumacher's lap record here, set in 2004 of a 132.238. Anthony Davidson's time is beaten almost instantaneously by Alex Wirtz for Williams, 140.19, but these are very early skirmishes, Maurice, and these times will come down.
Yeah, and the track's pretty green, hasn't been used much. Use it for the leaderboard at the end of the race, but Anthony Davidson getting the miles in the unfamiliar colours. 555 is the colours, they use them quite a lot. They come out here to the Far East. This is the branding that they would prefer, Lucky Strike, and it's they use them quite frequently in rallying and in Formula 1, so that's why the only drawback, as Holly said, is that the mechanics have to wear overalls, clothes that are, well, not exactly the height of fashion, are they?
It is one of the worst things you can say to a Honda engineer, mechanic or press officer this weekend. Oh, you look really good in blue.
Yeah.
They don't appreciate it too. In fact, you talk about Rubens and Jensen for Honda scoring points at Monza, and the only team to do so. They've actually scored points, both drivers, in the last 3 Grand Prix, as Anthony Davidson just locks up his brake going into that little tight right-hander at turn 14, right at the end of the straight. Locks up his front brake and has to go just off onto the grass, but going slowly enough. It's not grass, it's AstroTurf down there. A green, slippy bit of AstroTurf, but no real problems. Just, I suppose, testing where he can brake and where he can't there, Anthony Davidson. But the reliability has been there, and Honda scoring points, Morris, in the last 3 Grand Prix, which is so much more of an improvement from how the team were faring, certainly towards the middle part of this season. Yes,
it has been starting to come good for them. I mean, they are getting their act together. They just haven't got the out-and-out pace in the race, and I don't think they will now at this stage of the season, off the likes of Renault and Ferrari and indeed McLaren. They're just falling a little bit short, but they've got the reliability. Once you've got that, you can get the miles in and start to improve. But I think now they've got to be really looking at next year's car, unless you've got Hungary where they had the win, but that was one of those incredible races where things fell their way because it was a wet race, drying track. They grabbed their chance brilliantly. It's going to need something like that, I'm afraid, for Jenson Button to win another one. I think it's just no reflection on him. It's just the state of the car at the moment and the lack of pace during the actual races.
Very true. Nick Heifeld and Robert Kubica have appeared. Heifeld's gone straight back into the garage again after just one installation lap. Robert Kubica still out there on his installation lap. Alexander Prima is out there for his second lap for Spiker MF1. Now, if you've not been following the GP2 series, you wouldn't know too much about Alexander Prima. He finished third in the championship. He was Lewis Hamilton's teammate for 2006. You might have seen him in A1 Grand Prix as well, driving for France during the opening season there, and getting his first run out at a Grand Prix weekend. He tested for the team at last week at Silverstone, and was overjoyed to be sitting behind the wheel of a Formula 1 car for the first time, and one of many rising stars from GP2 that we will probably see a lot of in future years to come. Michael Ammermuller, who's testing here for Red Bull, is another one, a man who won the sprint race at Valencia in the GP2 season, finished 9th in the championship, part of the Red Bull Young Driver programme. And there are plenty coming through, Morris. We'll see many more in future weeks as well.
I think we're very fortunate, David, because the GP2 has encouraged an influx of some pretty respectable talent. And it's good to see, because we have had patches where you think, well, where's the next champion, the next Michael Schumacher coming from? You couldn't really see anybody on the horizon. Now there's a bunch of them, and they're all fighting for places in Formula 1, and that's great. That's exactly what the feeder formula should be doing, and GP2 has been just a revelation really. For the GP2 drivers, they were saying that the cornering, the grip during cornering of a GP2 car is phenomenal, and so the change from groove tires, which they had last year, to slicks this year, immediately found something like between 2 and 3 seconds a lap when they ran them for the first time at Paul Ricard. So that's the difference it makes, but that gives these drivers experience building into, so that when they step into a Formula 1, dynamics and all the rest of it, engine power, are a stage further ahead, but they are better, they're ready for it, and they soon get used to it.
You can hear Lewis Hamilton's verdict on the difference between a Formula 1 car and a GP2 car on 5 Live Sports Extra later on this evening on BBC Radio 5 Live. So 5 Live Formula 1, I should say, not 5 Live Sports Extra. I went down to talk to Lewis at the test last week, and the only sneak preview I'll give is my first comment when I said, how was it? He just went, it was awesome, just awesome. And it was almost like, it was like talking to a kid who'd just been on his first roller coaster ride and had discovered, the need for speed, as it were. And Lewis Hamilton had a
really, because he's been monitored by McLaren during his junior years in karting all the way through. They've kept an eye on him, given him advice, and obviously it was down to him to produce the goods, and he has. And so he now knows he's got the support of this team, and then to find yourself at 21 in a Grand Prix car with a professional team like McLaren, where everything's sorted, everything's run properly, he must have just had to pinch himself. You know, I can see why he probably had that grin on his face when you met him, because it is a dream come true for a guy like that, just to keep climbing. His path has just climbed all the way. There's hardly been a glitch in it. There's hardly been a time where he's sat down and thought, God, what am I going to do now? It's just kept happening. But because he is quick, he's good. I mean, that's the old story. If a driver is quick enough, if he's really, really good, he'll make it.
Yeah. The big question is, of course, if Alexander Primat and Michael Ammermuller are out on the track this weekend, when will we see Lewis Hamilton in Formula One? It's a big question that no one seems to be able to answer, and McLaren have been very coy about it. Certainly won't see him here for the Chinese Grand Prix or for...
I'm all for that. I think that's, and it will help us too, David, because it'll give us something to talk about with a little bit more inside knowledge. Well, not just inside knowledge, just knowledge, something that you can share. We'll know that such and such a driver is trying that tyre now. It's a softer one, therefore it should be a bit quicker, but it isn't going to last as long as the tyres on the car the guy he's chasing are about to pass, and it's just going to add a little bit to it, and I think that's great. And it is very much needed, because a lot of the interest in Formula One is you only find out later that after the race that so-and-so was struggling because he was on a different compound, and we didn't know that. And if we'd known that, we could then talk about it, and it would explain a lot. So I'm all for it. I think it's good.
Let's see if it helps. Kimi Raikkonen's coming out of the garage and will be passing Holly Samos any second now.
Me the pit lane. Anthony Davidson's just about to come in to the Honda garage, just coming down the pit lane in a second. And there is all that inside knowledge that Morris was talking about that goes on here in Formula One, but there's also a lot of gossip. And here in the pit lane, the gossip at the moment is that Anthony, that they bring into the drive for next year, and also that the car will be an old Honda BR car. That's Anthony just saying he's here. And so they'll be driving an old Honda BAR car, the R3, the first couple of races, and then
for Super Aguri, and we would lose him from our commentary team, which would be a huge shame, but it would be magnificent for Anthony Davidson and for British motor racing as well to have him driving in Formula One. As for the car, Morris, I know Super Aguri had these plans that they wanted to try and run a revised version of Honda's car for next season, but I thought that there was a rule preventing that within the FIA regulations in terms of, what is it, intellectual copyright, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit grey. Well, what's new in Formula One, David? Another grey area. And it is strange because, of course, Red Bull and Toro Rosso are doing much the same sort of thing. Toro Rosso saying, no, it's a different car, it's our car, it's not the hand-me-down from last year. But we understand that teams cannot supply other teams with a chassis. It has to be done. It has to be manufactured by you. Which is a shame in a way, because it leaves a question mark. Just to move on to something briefly, what's going to happen to David Richards then if he's going to come in, because he has this 12th slot? What's he going to have? Is he going to build his own car? The thought was he would be running something else. Now we're not so sure. We don't know quite what he's going to do. But yes, but the Red Bull Toro Rosso is that grey area exposed, and we're going to have the same thing here. You know, it's just hard to know what you're supposed to do with are Honda going to give them this car? Well, they're going to have to do some work on it to say it's actually a Super Aguri.
It's got to be, significantly different, yeah. I would imagine, in the eyes of the FIA. Now, I know Daniel Ordetto, the managing director at Super Aguri, was pushing, for this rule to be implemented, but couldn't get the unanimous vote from the rest of the teams. Now, in 2008, just to explain to you how Formula One changes,
it's caused so many problems in the past that 9 out of 10 teams will agree on something and one will hold out, and it can't be done. But I think it's better to have it that way, because otherwise you just stand still, nothing happens, and sensible changes are not brought about because one team, one person holds out against it.
Absolutely. It's 5 Live Sports Extra. Morris Hamilton and David Croft and Holly Samos with you here in Shanghai ahead of the Chinese Grand Prix. We've had 18 minutes nearly of this first practice session. Let's let you know what's going on the track. Alex Wurz is still the fastest man, 1:38.322 with his best lap time. Anthony Davidson just 0.2 of a second down on the Williams driver in a 1:38.54. Niels Jani is out on the track at the moment for Toro Rosso, 1:39.737 his best time. That's just under 1.5 seconds slower than Alex Wurz. Sebastian Vettel, the 19-year-old fan of Little Britain for BMW Sauber, 1:40.308 his best time so far. Michael Ammermuller just behind him, 0.3 of a second down for Red Bull in 1:40.56. Then Alexander Primož with his best time of 1:41.462, 3.1 seconds at the moment off the pace, which is very respectable after 8 laps. Sakon Yamamoto 1:41.68, and faster than Frank Montagny 1:43.069. His Super Aguri teammate in Montagny, and just had a little moment at turn 2 in what is a corner that just seems to go on forever and ever, twisting right-handed and into turn 3 as well, and then dropping down. It's a very slow corner after the aggressive. Of course, he does get that Super Aguri drive, and it's looking ever more likely. There will be 4 British drivers in Formula 1 next year.
Yeah, that's good news. We definitely need that. It'll give us something else to miss him, as you said, in the commentary box, because I think he's absolutely brilliant here. He's got certainly a job if he ever stops. Well, when he stops driving or racing in Formula 1, he can be a great commentator. But for the time being, yes, I'd rather see him in a Formula 1 car, because that's where he deserves to be. He's certainly done enough during testing to prove himself. He's had 3 Grand Prix races, 2 and a bit, because the third one, which should have been his moment when Takuma Sato had that illness suddenly in Malaysia, was struck down, and suddenly there was Anthony's big chance. He was on his way to the airport, called back, and the engine blew. I think it was a couple of laps, and that was the end of it that day in Malaysia. And that was Anthony's big chance to give it something. He was lying in the midfield, poised to try and move up and get something done, and the engine went. So he was gutted, and we all were for him. So yes, anyway, to get into a race seat would be good. All right, it's a Super Aguri. They're at the back of the field, but he can bring something to the party, and it's what you do against your teammate. It's what you do. If you're seen to be lifting the team up, then that's down to you, the driver. You're helping along the way. It's going to do his reputation no harm at all. I mean, he can't gain any more. Well, we probably won't have a test driver role anyway. Depends how that all pans out in the Friday. But he can do no more now than he's done as test driver. He's been brilliant. Honda think the world of him because of all the information, the feedback, and we can hear part of that when he's up in the commentary box.
Absolutely.
Can't we? You know, just the things he sees, just watching on the screen, the attitude of the car, the language, the body language of the car, if you like, coming into a corner. He can almost tell you how much fuel is on board, and and what colour the driver's underpants are. It's quite amazing.
And that famous moment, if you remember it, from Canada in 2005, when Anthony spotted that Jenson Button would be going off to the track and hitting the champion's wall even before we saw the car, Maurice.
Yes, he heard the rev limiter coming in when it shouldn't have done, through the commentary box window with his headset on, listening to us gabbling away as Jenson touched the curve a little bit more than he should, which en route to the famous wall, and he sprang to his feet and saw it, and before anybody did. Quite extraordinary. I don't know how he did that.
Anthony Davidson will be with us for qualifying tomorrow on Saturday, of course, on 5 Live Sports.
Very, very little grip on the track at the moment. This is not a track that gets used too much, so at the moment it's really just putting rubber down on the track, and we'll learn more as the session goes by. But first run was okay, and I think we'll be fairly strong here. And
you've had some testing in between the last race and this one, and obviously the engine blow in Monza that unfortunately Andy dealt with. How's that all developed? Yeah, that's developed in fact very well. We identified very quickly what the problem was in fact a manufacturing error rather than anything else. So it was nothing to do with a development step that we'd taken, and then used that in Brazil, and that'll become our engine for the next few years. Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Nick.
That improved engine for Japan, Maurice, is that what they call the Suzuka Special? Yeah,
it certainly is, because that's, although they deny that, but you can be sure that Honda on their home patch want to do well, want to have the best possible show that they can manage, and there's that little bit extra there. They're always trying 100%, but believe me, there's that little bit extra put in for a good show at Suzuka, and a wonderful track to do it, a wonderful place to do it, to showcase it. And particularly this year, of course, we'll talk about it in a week's time when we get there, but it's likely to be our last visit for a while, I'm afraid. Hope there's a chance that it might come in, but again, this is something we could do.
To Fuji next Tuesday, in between the 2 races here, to see how that track has changed since 1977, when we last had a Formula 1 Grand Prix at that circuit. James Hunt won, of course, that particular year. and it'll be back on the calendar as the Japanese Grand Prix next year. So I'm off to Fuji just to have a look, and we'll report back on 5 Live Formula 1 as we watch Anthony Davidson back out on the track again, and a real clear indication of what Nick Fry was telling us just a few moments ago, Maurice, about the lack of grip. Anthony weaving on his outline, the right spot for his on the car.
Certainly he's sliding around a lot, and as we saw him just understeer off the track on one of his first laps, just no grip at the front end of the car whatsoever. Track temperature is 30 degrees. It's probably a little bit cooler as well than they would have expected, where the aerodynamic effects from the diffuser at the rear just sucking it out and spitting it out the back. Still signs of it, and the car dancing around a little bit under braking coming into the first corner as well, which is not helping him. But yes, he's having to work quite hard just to keep the car on the road, stop it sliding off, while at the same time trying to gain some information. There's not a lot he can tell them at this stage, because of the car will not be handling at its peak because it's just sliding so much on the dirty track. And of course the information from the tyres is they can't really tell a lot when the track surface is in that condition.
And it's also quite bumpy in parts, this track as well. I mentioned there's a little dip as the cars make their way just about a third of the way down the main straight underneath the huge big bridge which occupies the media centre. Or two down there as well, which
they've got quite a bit more, but even so you can see them dancing around at this stage, and it's I wouldn't want to be hitting bumps when I'm trying to brake from 200 miles an hour down to 60 miles an hour for the first corner and get the positioning off the car just right and the braking point just right. Very, very tricky.
Yeah, not exactly going to give you full confidence as you go into that corner. So far, so good though, and no one's really got it wrong. And we've had nearly, 28 minutes, 27 minutes we've had this first practice session. Anthony Davidson is the fastest man out on the track, 1:37.404. Alex Wirtz, 1:38.322. That's his fastest lap so far. That's, 9/10 of a second down on Anthony Davidson. Sebastian Vettel, Nils Jani and Michael Ammermuller are all back in the pit lane. Vettel 1.26 seconds off Anthony Davidson at the moment. Nils Jani 4/10 down on him, and Michael Ammermuller, 3.1 seconds down on Anthony Davidson so far. Alexander Primat is out on the track, 1:40.67. With 3.2 seconds down on Anthony Davidson. Then comes Sakon Yamamoto and Frank Montagny, and Takuma Sato yet to register a time. But Sato will have a penalty in qualifying. He's changed his engine already this weekend.
Oh, well, that's a terrible start. Just watching Prima on. I see his head lolling in the cockpit already, and they're fit. He's done a GP2 season, but I think he's struggling because the angle of his head at times is lolling about, and I think it's going, and once it goes, it's gone. You cannot get it back. You know, that's it. The drivers tell you no matter what amount of training you do, if that neck muscle goes, the G-forces are phenomenal here, and of course that's the Formula 1 drivers. We learn to accept that they're incredibly fit, and you hardly notice they don't have any problems as such. But a new guy comes in to Formula 1, driving a Formula 1 car, and if he's not prepared for this, it does catch them by surprise. And there's these fast corners, for example, the turn 13, which you were referring to, the long right, although it's banked coming through there, accelerating all the way through, starts off 50 miles an hour at the first left-hand and then comes all the way through the right, up through the gears, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, coming out of it on the banked turn, and the right-hander doing about 160, 170. The G-forces there, the old neck's getting a bit of a hammering there, and I think he's already feeling it, Prima.
He wouldn't be the only one as well. A lot of the GP2 drivers have said the biggest thing they found that's different is the G-forces they're subjected to, and the way that the pressure is resting on their neck. And, well, to give you an example back at home of the pressure these guys are under, remember the infamous turn 8 at Turkey, where it's a multi-apex right-hand turn, and the drivers are being subjected to G-forces around about 4.5 G. And I asked Alex Wirtz when we were in Turkey, just what does that mean to your head? He said, if your head weighs about 8 kilograms, times that by 4, and just imagine lying on the ground on your side and someone putting 32 kilograms on top of the side of your head, and then you've got to try and move against that weight. That's what
gym work can only do so much. There is no substitute for actually driving a car. The gym work can't replicate these forces that they're going, and it's a problem that they've got to overcome. in their training, but just driving the car is the best way to do it. And we're just seeing there another picture of Prima, and you can see his head is starting to loll quite a bit, and it is a struggle for them coming through these corners. He's got his head, he's going into a left-hander, and his head is leaning against the right-hand side of the cockpit already.
I don't know what it was like in the olden days. Did it, in, say, go back 10, 15 years? Were the G-forces still the same for drivers back then?
They weren't cornering as fast as they are now. The out-and-out cornering speed coming through the apex, the tightest part of the corner, they weren't going as quickly as this. The grip these days, the aerodynamics and tire grip is phenomenal, and the G-forces are a lot higher. And the same under braking, particularly, we tend to forget that the braking distances are so short. And here we're talking about, for example, coming from 200 miles an hour down to 60 miles an hour going into turn 1, doing that in about 120 meters, and your chin just drops down onto your, because your head's going forward, the weight of the helmet, and a lot of G-forces being applied in the body there, so there's forces going that way as well. That's much more than it was, because the braking has just got more and more ferocious. The distance is shorter and shorter.
Let's hit the Toro Rosso team radio.
Radio check, Scott. Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, are you happy with your mirrors? No, they need to be changed if it's not a problem.
Well, that's Scott Speed. I wonder what sort of information we'd be getting from the Toro Rosso garage, but it just seems he's got a problem seeing what's behind him, which is not too many cars come race day for the Toro Rosso, but it's always handy when Michael Schumacher or Fernando Alonso are accelerating up behind you to see them coming your way. Nils Jani, his teammate, is still out on the track, and the rear mirrors, the wing mirrors I should say, of Sakon Yamamoto. We'll see that Toro Rosso coming up right behind him in a moment, because the Super Aguri car going very slowly indeed, just ahead of him on his outlap. And Nils Jani had a little bit of a moment just earlier on this, his 11th lap of this Shanghai circuit, where he went off onto the AstroTurf once again. And Sakon Yamamoto, still Maurice Hamilton, going very slowly indeed. And you kind of get the impression that Super Aguri's got a problem.
I think he has. And looking at Yanni's problem there, that was in turn 1 stroke 2, which is this long curly-whirly, if you like, right-hander. It looks like a Danish pastry, one of those things that just goes round and round and round. Then it flicks left at the end, and it's also going downhill into the bargain. And what you've got to do coming in there is you've got to carry as much speed as you can into that corner. And keep going until the last minute. And of course the young guys who novices here won't be used to that, and they've just got to try and find their way. And Yanni took too much speed in, and it just dragged him out wide, and as soon as he went off the racing line, he's then on the dirt, then he's on the AstroTurf, and it's all gone. And of course that lap's gone because the tires are dirty and all the rest of it. But it is such a tricky corner, that getting into they're carrying the braking in as late as possible while the car's turning, so all the weight's moving to one side and the balance is upset. This is where you need a well-balanced car, and this is what the test drivers are out there trying to do right now, trying to get the balance sorted, trying to get everything ready for the race drivers, the knowledge handed back so that they can get on with the job this afternoon.
Host of activity going on around Alex Wirtz's car in the Williams garage. Wirtz, the second fastest man out on the track so far today. The car, well, up on the hydraulic jacks, which to me would suggest there's some major work going on there, and they've actually covered the back of the car. The rear wing has been covered with some form of blanket as well, for whatever reason. And a lot of engineers all crowding round Alex Wirtz's car, trying to solve whatever problem the team are finding at the moment. Alex Wirtz has completed just 14 laps so far in 35 minutes. He and Anthony Davidson, normally the two guys that spend most of the session out on the track. They put in more work, I think, than anyone else during the course of a Friday this season. Alex Wirtz has been rewarded, of course, with a race drive for next season for Williams. Anthony Davidson, we expect and we hope, will be rewarded with a race drive at Super Aguri as well. And he, alongside Jenson Button and David Coulthard, if Anthony gets that drive, will be racing, of course. And I say 4 British drivers in Formula 1 because we fully expect Lewis Hamilton, if not in a McLaren car at the start of the season, to make some sort of an appearance next year, and certainly as a test driver, you'd have thought.
Oh, definitely a test driving role, David. I think it would be a mistake to put him into a race seat straight away, because he's got loads of time on his side. You can do that too soon, and with the greatest respect, I think Jenson Button was ushered in too quickly, too soon. and it nearly went all wrong because it was huge pressure. And you know, when you're in Formula One and racing, the teams are there, as Ron Dennis will tell you repeatedly, this, and this. We need you to score points. We want to try and win this race. Go. And then on top of that, there's the media waiting. As soon as he gets out of the car and he does his debriefs and he goes and sees the sponsors, the media with all their questions, how's it going and all the rest of it. And it's a tough call, a very tough call, and a little bit of a time spent testing, as we see.
Michael Ammermuller spinning, just overcooking it on this, his 10th lap of the session so far. He's gone off towards the gravel, but he's managed to keep the car going, and he's kept the engine going, and well done to him on that. And he can accelerate once more down towards turn 5 and then turn 6, 2 slow turns. So I think he was just on the exit of turn 4, the left-hander, trying to get on the power, second gear, around about 75 miles an hour, and accelerating towards the straight, and just overcooked it a bit. Sorry, turn 10 as he came out of that particular turn. It was turn 9, the left-hander, and then the left-hander once again. And a very slow part of the track, and he just...
It also illustrates that it's not just a simple matter of stepping up from GP2 into Formula 1 and carrying on with a faster car. It's not like having a road car and then you buy a GT version of it, you know, a more souped up version. You soon get used to it. These cars are quite different. They're so much more complicated to learn, so much to do, but also the performance as well. And the Ammermuller has just proved exactly how it is difficult. It can just bite you back with no trouble at all. You put a wheel in the curb, maybe only a couple of inches, a rear wheel, looks like what he did there, put the power down, and away she went. No, he'd lost it actually before he even hit the curb, I think. Yeah, he'd gone in far too wide. He'd missed the apex off the corner, run wide, and then she was gone.
And he did very well to keep it going. And I mean, the other thing, to go back to what you were saying about Alexander Primar and the way he's struggling with the G-forces and the demands of driving a Formula 1 car, it makes sense, doesn't it, Maurice, if someone is coming through that you hope will be a star in the future and has got the talent to be a star in the future, well, you've got to give his body time to adjust to the demands of Formula 1 so that when he does appear on the scene, that can cope with it as well.
Yeah, the testing is a great way to do that, the testing role, because I mean, they do such a phenomenal amount of work in between races. You know, sometimes they'll do 2 Grand Prix distances in a day, which is just incredible. You know, 90 laps of Barcelona is normal for Anthony Davidson during a day's work, which is a phenomenal amount of work. But boy, are you race fit after that? I mean, you are ready, because there is no equal to that. As I was saying, you get corners. So yeah, it'll do him. It'll be, I think a testing will be perfect for Lewis Hamilton, much as we'd love to see him race immediately because it's a great story. But time will come. He you know, if everything's played right, and I think of all the teams in the pit lane, David, McLaren is the one that I think will do it absolutely right.
I think Michael Andretti was McLaren's last rookie, 1993, but he'd already won an IndyCar title by that stage, so he was hardly a rookie in terms of championship experience. And I think you go back to, what, 1981 for the rookie before that?
He talked to fell short, and that's why he struggled. So 2 points of view on that. But yeah, the Michael Andretti saga, I'm afraid, was a great shame, because was a fantastic, well, he still does race occasionally, great racer, but we never saw it because he was just totally at sea, never really got to grips with Formula 1. You know, he had a great teammate, of course. He had Ayrton Senna there, so you're trying to measure yourself against him. Very difficult thing to do. But then, having said that, Mika Hakkinen gets into the car and is quicker than Senna. I think it was Portugal, it was, and he's quicker than Senna. So suddenly Michael Andretti's looking very poor quality indeed. And so that was just a very unhappy, a very messy ending to what could have been a great story. You know, Mario Andretti's son in Formula 1, Mario Andretti, the world champion in 1968, and his son comes in and doesn't make it.
It's 5 Live Sports Extra. Maurice Hamilton and David Croft and Holly Samos with you here at Shanghai. 19 minutes to go of this session. Let's give you a full rundown of those that have set a time so far. Anthony Davidson in the garage at the moment after 18 laps in his Honda, 1:37.40. Sebastian Vettel second in the standings, 1:37.99. He's half a second down on Anthony Davidson. Alexander Primar getting closer and yeah, putting in faster times all the while in that Spiker MF1, 138.141. He's just over 7/10 of a second down on Anthony Davidson at the moment. Alex Verts going quick on his latest lap. They've been working on the car in the Williams garage, and he's 1/10 of a second faster on this lap than Anthony Davidson. 138.322 is his best time. He's now gone 2/10 of a second faster through the first two sectors, so I expect him to jump to the top of the standings in just 40 or so seconds time. Neil Yarney 139.04. He's 1.6 seconds down on Anthony Davidson. Frank Montagny 139.747. He's 2.3 seconds down. Then Takuma 7/10 faster in total, so he picked up an awful lot on the final sector, as long as it is 42 seconds it takes the cars to complete that final sector from just before turn 11 to the finish line. Nick Heifeld and Robert Kubica and Kimi Raikkonen and Scott Speed, Antonio Liuzzi and Thiago Monteiro have all been out for one lap. Jarno Trulli has completed 2 laps but hasn't set a time. Christian Albers and Ralf Schumacher, the only other drivers to venture out onto the track, and Ralf Schumacher not set a time as such yet. Fernando Alonso and Giancarlo Fisichella, we haven't seen either of those two in the Renault garage. We haven't seen Michael Schumacher or Felipe Massa yet either. Mark Webber or Nico Rosberg, Rubens Barrichello or Jenson Button, David Coulthard or Robert Dornbos. We haven't seen out on the track, and Pedro de la Rosa has been very, very quiet, and Ralf Schumacher back out onto the track again after just briefly visiting the pits. I'm surprised that we haven't seen Coulthard or Robert Dornbos. Morris, the two Red Bull drivers, normally in action on a Friday morning, and Robert Dornbos, well, he's got a race to concentrate on for the first time this season as well.
Yeah, it's a big step up for him, but it must be so frustrating, because he obviously wants to get out there and get some miles under his belt and get ready, but of course you can't because of these rather bizarre restrictions they've got on tires, but particularly engines. They can't run the engines any longer than they need to because they've got to last 2 races, etc. So very frustrating for something like Dornbos, but it's going to be interesting to see just how he gets on, because I actually rate Dornbos quite highly. When he was racing at Minardi, he certainly kept Christian Albers on his toes. The pair of them had some great scraps, and I think Dornbos was marginally the quicker of the two. Be interesting to see how he shapes up against David Coulthard here.
Now, he's obviously in the seat because Christian Klein has been released by the team and was offered drives in America, but wants to pursue what he calls his other options in Formula 1, which I assume means a second seat at Spiker, because everything else seems to be pretty much taken care of for next year. And I know that Christian Klein has been to the Spiker factory just for a little look round at the Silverstone base, but Dornbos comes in because of that situation. Are you surprised that Klein was let go with 3 races to go this season?
Yeah, it was a bit actually, because okay, he hasn't exactly set the world on fire. He had a good year last year and it hasn't really been moved forward into this season.
Much delight into Formula 1. A lovely guy, Robert Dornbos, as well. I had the pleasure of meeting him at a Red Bull karting event in Cardiff earlier on in the season. A really, really pleasant guy. He used to be a tennis professional until he met Jacques Villeneuve at a Grand Prix. I thought, do you know what? Forget the racket. I'd rather be doing this motor racing malarkey. And his chat with Jacques Villeneuve inspired him to have a career in Formula 1. And I think his first race, he got taken out by Jacques Villeneuve on the track as well. So much really hero worship that was going on there. Yeah,
he's had a pretty rapid rise, actually, Dornbos, in motorsport, for the reason you've said, because he's quite a late developer in some ways. But there's a lot of, I think, latent talent there, and this is going to be a good chance up against David Coulthard, a known quantity. He's learnt a lot having been in the test role, but now in the race role. Between now and the end of the year to try and he knows the circuit, so he's starting off from a pretty good base.
Certainly is. Michael Ammermuller is the man doing all the work for Red Bull at the moment, and he's just set the 6th fastest time overall. His best lap of the session so far with 13 minutes to go, 139.289, and he's off again, making his way through that curly-whirly, as Morris describes it rather aptly, first 3 corners. And the track just drops down slightly as the cars speed up towards the grandstands at turn 6. Very slow corner, 45 miles an hour, second gear corner at the track, and then braking once again, almost clipping the inside curb at turn 9 and then 10, and that's where Michael Ammermuller had his little moment before. This time gets the apex, no one behind him. He can just get on the power before braking from about 200 miles an hour down to turn 14, and that second gear corner 55 or so miles an hour. And then Hernan Tilke has designed with not as much concrete runoff areas as some of his other creations, Maurice. The crowd a lot closer here than they are, say, in Bahrain.
Yes, they are. Bahrain's not a good example at all, I think, of his work. This is a lot better, though Turkey really is the best example, I think, of his work. But this is, again, there are points where the crowd are quite a way away, although they've got very steep banked grandstands. We can see, for example, way ahead of us if we look out the back of the circuit, turn 13, 12 and 13, that long right, the banked exit to it. There's a huge runoff area there, and the crowd, there's a sort of a horseshoe shape grandstands there. There must be 7, 8, 9, 10 grandstands, something like that, but they are a fair bit away. You know, the cars are not that close, but they say they'll get a good view of the whole circuit. At least it'll be quite good from a racing point of view. They'll be able to see a fair bit of the track, but you don't really feel the close contact that you get at other tracks.
I think you get a lot closer up towards turn 6, where the stands are sort of on either side of the track on the entrance into turn 6 and that horseshoe turn and the exit of it as well, and also down the far end of the 4/10 of a second faster than Alex Wirtz. The crowd here today is sparse. You'd expect that for a Friday. The grandstands not exactly overly full, just a few speckles of spectators sitting in the seats, and in the main grandstand here, well, a few more people have made it to the premium seats, and price-wise it's about $22, I think, for the cheapest one-day entry for the Grand Prix, but out of the reach, I would say, of most of the population. Of
9,000 people on its own, so you know it's always going to look a bit sparse on a Friday, as you say, at most circuits anyway. I think the one exception probably Silverstone, where you get a massive turnout in the Friday, but here, places like this, in Malaysia particularly, you get one man and his dog turning up on a Friday, so it hasn't really, the motorsport culture is not here, and this is where it shows.
One thing that maybe they do get right at Silverstone now is the pricing policy, where they've frozen prices, haven't they, for next year again. £99 will get you a 3-day pass for the entire Grand Prix, and if you can't make all 3 days, but say you can make 2 and I like the idea that they're making it easier for people to buy the tickets. If you can find a friend,
but why not sell it just on a Friday? Why not have a Friday ticket? I just don't understand why they don't do it. You know, if you want to turn up on a Friday and that's it, you can't do it. You know, unless you've got some friends, as you say, then it works. But well, why complicate it? That's beyond me.
Or maybe have a buy on the door policy if they haven't sold all the tickets out. That's the way to do it. I would assume that what Silverstone want is to ensure as many people as possible buy their tickets in advance, because that way they can keep the prices low, because they get the money in early, and I suppose they can do that by having a 3-day policy rather than just selling it for a Saturday and a Sunday and no one buying tickets for the Friday. The trouble is this season, Maurice, is that there's not been a huge incentive for people to come along on a Friday because the action hasn't been there on the track. Hopefully next year they'll get that right.
Yes, that certainly needs addressing. Formula One, we're seeing it right now. You know, some of the key runners, Michael Schumacher hasn't been out yet with just over 6 minutes left.
For his first installation lap, Rubens Barrichello has come out as well. Their teammate Anthony Davidson has done 22 laps. He's the fastest man out on the track at the moment from Alex Wirtz, 4/10 down, and Alexander Prima 1.5 seconds down for Spiker, and Sebastian Vettel 1.6 seconds down now for BMW, and Giancarlo Fisichella and Fernando Alonso are putting on their crash helmets, so we might just get a lap from them before the end of this session, with 5 minutes and 40 seconds to go here on 5 Live Sports Extra. And Michael Schumacher, I would assume, just looking down into the Ferrari garage, is maybe getting ready as well. As a huge crowd of photographers right outside. These photographers spend the entire hour just snapping away at Michael Schumacher and Felipe Massa out just at the back of the garage. Schumacher has come out onto the track for his first over the line in 1:38.600. Michael Schumacher coming to the end of his installation lap as Alex Wirtz approaches the finish line now with 4 minutes and 10 seconds to go and goes fastest, 1:35.574. And to remind you what pole was from last year, 1:34.08. So 1.5 seconds, Alex Wirtz, slower than that pole time, and we're only on Friday practice, Maurice. That is encouraging.
Yeah, it's time's coming down quite nicely, so that should see some quick times this afternoon, building up towards free practice tomorrow and then qualifying itself. And Alonso has got into his car and got out of it.
He has, as Michael Schumacher. No indication as to what was wrong. The car was still up on the jack, so the engine visits to the Shanghai circuit.
No, he's had a disastrous time here. Hasn't scored a championship point here, so the Chinese must be wondering what on earth all the fuss is about this guy, because in his both appearances here, he really, not just the fact of having not good races, he's messed up actually, because in qualifying first visit 2004, he ran wide, which dropped him down the grid, and he then struggled to come through from there. And last year, famously, of course, on his way to the grid, he went into the back of Christian Albers in the Minardi, had to start from the pit lane in the spare Ferrari, and then promptly spun off behind a safety car, Michael Schumacher did, and ended up in the gravel. Ended the season, what was a pretty dire season for Michael Schumacher and Ferrari. This was the last race last year, and Michael ended it in the gravel trap.
Michael Schumacher just negotiating that right-hand turn at turn 14 as Jenson Button goes third with a 1:37.291, and Michael Schumacher crosses the line in a 1:37.72, right behind Jenson Button in fourth place, but 0.4 of a second down on that Honda best time. And the bearded D'Artagnan lookalike that is Fernando Alonso sits at the back of the garage looking at the screens. I don't think he's coming out in this session, Maurice.
No, with just under 2 minutes to go. No, whatever happened there, he got kitted out, got into the car, got out of it again. Maybe they'd done some adjustment to the cockpit he was going to try, I don't know. But, oh, somebody spun, big spin.
There is a big spin, and he's kept it going as well. Kimi Raikkonen, it looked like, and it is Kimi Raikkonen who had that spin in his McLaren Mercedes, but did very well indeed to keep the engine going, get the car back out on the track again, and now making his way up towards turn 11. So I would assume it's round about turn 7, coming out of that short straight at about 150 miles an hour, where Kimi Raikkonen had that spin, and some worried faces in the McLaren garage. People looking to see what was wrong with Kimi Raikkonen's car, or what he did wrong in terms of his drive. His recovery was exceptional, even if the attempt at the corner wasn't. Kimi Raikkonen is okay and still out on the track, as is Anthony Davidson, crossing the line now. 1:35.591, second on the standings, 100th of a second, or 17,000th if you want to take it to that degree, slower than Alex Wirtz. And we can see, Maurice, what happened with Kimi Raikkonen now. Yeah, just hit the curb, didn't he?
Touches the curb coming through turn 7. The left-hander, the long left-hander, touches the inside curb, and it looks like the back, we're seeing now from the outside of the car, yeah, the back wheel hits it, and then he just knocks the car slightly offline, and then away she goes. Although it is a bit odd that it spun. It didn't spin immediately after hitting the curb, so just maybe unsettled the car. He wasn't concentrating, I don't know what. But anyway, as you say, he kept it going, kept the engine running, and got going again. But Michael Schumacher in fourth place, David, interesting, isn't it, that he's in the car out in the track, and we're seeing Felipe Massa just standing in his civvies at the pit wall. Now, normally Massa would be doing the donkey work, doing the homework, and it's Michael's out. So I wonder if this is just a sign that, of the championship having to play for, he needs to get the information himself. It's an unusual, because normally it's Massa sent out and to sacrifice, if you like, his engine and all the rest of it just to get the information back.
Maybe in the psychological battle as well in this championship, they just want to lay down a couple of markers to Renault as well, and Michael Schumacher, not going as fast as I'm sure he would like, and I think maybe it's just a way of saying, look, we got held up a bit, but we were...
Didn't fancy going out. He got it and he was going to go out, and then he just decided not to. And I said, well, are there any problems at all with the car? I said, absolutely no problems at all. Maybe he was just trying the pedals or something like that, but they are going to run later on this afternoon when the track is cleaner in the next session, as obviously the track
Absolutely, thanks, Holly. Yeah, we've seen a number of cars, haven't we, Morris, spinning, including Kimi Raikkonen, but What's that, driver power there? Just didn't fancy going out?
I tell you what, I don't know about that, but we nearly had an incident up at going into turn up the back straight, turn 13. Turn 11, 12, leading into 13, when Michael Schumacher was going too slowly for Robert Kubica. He caught him out, and Kubica had locked up and then nearly went into the back of the Ferrari, completely caught out by the slower pace of Michael Schumacher at that point. And it wouldn't have been far from where Michael Schumacher drove into the back of the Minardi going to the grid last year.
All to play for. The checkered flag is out and has been waved, and that Ferrari car is back in the garage and is being pushed back in. Just a few more cars still out on the track. I can see Scott Speed coming back into the pits in a couple of moments as well. Thiago Monteiro needs to come back in, Robert Kubica and Nils Jani. So let's give you the rundown of the times we have from this Friday practice session. Alex Wurz, 1:35.574, fastest man, as has been the case on many an occasion for Williams this season. Anthony Davidson dueling away with his good friend Alex Wurz. The Honda car 17,000th of a second slower in second place. Jenson Button third in the standings, 1:37.291, but 1.7 seconds slower than Alex Wurz. Then Michael Schumacher fourth in a 1:37.71. Nils Jani 1:37.73 for Toro Rosso. Alexander Prima 1:37.78 for Spiker. Then Sebastian Vettel 1:37.91. Robert Kubica for BMW 1:38.06. Then Michael Ammermuller, Frank Montagny, Antonio Liuzzi 1:39 dead. Rubens Barrichello 1:39.2. Scott Speed, Christian Alves, Takuma Sato, Thiago Monteiro and Sakon Yamamoto, and then Kimi Raikkonen. The only times we've had. Maurice, what do you make of that hour?
Well, I think the times are going to be certainly maybe under the pole position of last year. Otherwise, not really a lot to say. Friday morning is pretty difficult to just try and analyse what's going on, because they're just getting their eye in, cleaning the track up, all the rest of it. But interesting that Michael Schumacher was doing the laps, as I say, and then we see